Jack strode through the bustling corridors of Starhaven Station with the kind of confidence that made everyone notice him. The chatter of traders, engineers, and travelers barely registered as he passed, his focus on the group of humans and aliens gathered near the observation deck. He held himself like a predator among prey, and in his mind, he was exactly that. After months in the deadly zones of the galaxy, he had returned to civilization with more trophies than anyone else could even dream of. He had faced the Deathworlds, the planets where life fought for every second, and had come back alive, unscathed, and victorious. "Another safe trip, Jax?" One of the station guards called out, a hint of admiration in his voice. Jax smirked. "Safe. I wouldn't call it that, but yes, I'm back in one piece. The creatures didn't even get a scratch on me. Some of them might even remember my name." He paused for dramatic effect, watching the group of humans and aliens lean in, intrigued. "I tell you, those Deathworlders think they're clever. But when you've hunted them like I have, you know the truth. They're nothing but challenges waiting to be overcome." And yet, he leaned closer, lowering his voice so that everyone strained to hear, "None of them ever hunted me back." Then she arrived. Lyra stepped out from the shadows of the corridor, her movements smooth, almost silent. Her eyes were sharp, amber-colored, and intelligent. She didn't rush, didn't need to. She simply observed, letting Jax finish his tale before she spoke. "Did any of them hunt you back?" Her voice was calm, almost lazy, but it carried a weight that made Jax freeze for a heartbeat. The question was so simple, so understated, that it caught him completely off guard. He blinked, unsure how to respond. The crowd waited, sensing a challenge but not knowing its nature. "What?" he finally said, trying to hide the sudden tension in his chest. None of them could touch me, that's why I survived." "You said none of them hunted you back. Did any of them?" She simply studied him, and in that silence, Jax felt like she could see straight through him, through every trick, every boast, every carefully built story he had told himself about his own greatness. "You speak as if survival is only about skill with weapons," Lyra said finally. "But survival is more than that. Survival is understanding the world around you. It's knowing your enemy and knowing yourself." She was calm but commanding, and her words carried weight. Even some of the humans who had heard Jax's stories countless times leaned forward, curious to see how he would respond. Jax straightened, trying to regain control. "And who are you to question a hunter of Deathworlders?" he asked, a hint of irritation creeping into his voice. Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. "I am someone who understands hunting better than most," she said softly. "And I am someone who has watched hunters like you struggle when they forget the most important lesson. The galaxy is alive, and it hunts back in ways you cannot always predict." He had faced storms that shredded entire cities, predators that could leap hundreds of meters in a single bound, and creatures that could manipulate energy itself. He had stared death in the face and walked away with trophies. Yet Lyra's calm confidence made him feel vulnerable in a way he had never felt before. He decided to test her. "And have you hunted Deathworlders yourself?" he asked, trying to mask his curiosity with bravado. Lyra nodded once. "Yes, and unlike some hunters, I did not merely survive. I learned, I adapted, I respected the rules of the hunt. Survival is simple. Be faster, be stronger, be smarter than they are." Jax felt a prickle of doubt, an unfamiliar tension crawling up his spine. He had never faced a creature, a storm, or a challenge that could shake him like this. And yet here was a single alien woman standing calmly with no weapons in sight, and she had already unsettled him. He tried to regain control. "Are you saying you want to show me this world?" he asked, trying to sound confident. Lyra's smile widened slightly, almost imperceptibly. "I am offering you a chance," she said. "A chance to see whether your confidence is justified, a chance to understand the truth about survival. And perhaps," she added, her eyes glinting, "a chance to see if the hunter can truly survive when the rules are not his own." The kind of weight he had felt only once before, on the edge of a cliff, facing a predator that could crush him in seconds. Pride told him to accept. Curiosity told him to accept. Fear whispered, but he ignored it. "I accept," he said finally, his voice steady. The crowd murmured in surprise. Few humans were brave or foolish enough to step willingly into the unknown. He met Lyra's gaze and nodded. "Take me to this world, show me what real hunting is." He checked his equipment, cleaned his weapons, and ran simulations of possible scenarios in his mind. Nothing felt adequate. Every time he tried to imagine the creatures, the storms, the Deathworlds, they seemed to shift and change. He was facing a challenge he had never truly anticipated, a test not of skill alone, but of humility, patience, and understanding. As he prepared, he noticed the eyes of other humans on him. Some were impressed, some skeptical, and some quietly afraid. They had heard the stories of Deathworld hunters before. They knew the stakes, and now Jax was stepping further than most had dared. Lyra appeared again, standing silently at the edge of the docking bay. "The transport is ready," she said. "When you step aboard, remember this: the galaxy does not forgive arrogance. It tests, it challenges, and it hunts. Those who understand survive. Those who do not are forgotten." As the ship lifted from Starhaven Station, leaving behind the lights and chatter of civilization, Jax looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there lay the Deathworld Lyra had spoken of, a place where the rules of survival were not written by humans. He thought of the creatures he had faced, the storms he had survived, and the victories he had claimed. And he realized, with a thrill that mingled with fear, that none of it had prepared him for what awaited. Lyra sat silently across from him, her eyes steady on the shifting stars. She said nothing more, but the weight of her presence told him everything he needed to know. He had been proud, arrogant even. Now he was on the edge of understanding something greater, something that would change the way he thought of himself, of hunting, and of humanity's place in the galaxy. The transport shuddered as it entered faster-than-light travel, and Jax leaned back in his seat. He could feel the pulse of the ship, the hum of energy coursing through its systems. And as the stars stretched into lines of light around him, he whispered quietly to himself, almost as a warning, "I am ready. Whatever comes, I will survive." And that thought, unspoken but undeniable, settled over him like the shadow of a predator stalking in the dark. The transport shuddered as it exited faster-than-light travel, dropping into the outer reaches of an uncharted system. Jax pressed his forehead to the viewport, staring at the swirling orange clouds of a planet below. Its surface was jagged and violent, a mosaic of black rock, rushing rivers of molten lava, and twisted forests that seemed to writhe even from orbit. "This is it," Lyra said softly, standing beside him. Her voice carried no fear, no hesitation. "This world is alive, Jax. Every plant, every creature, every gust of wind is aware. It learns, it adapts. If you are careless, it will hunt you, and it will not forgive." The very planet seemed designed to challenge every instinct he had honed over years. "Looks like another Deathworld," he said, trying to keep his usual arrogance intact. "I've survived worse storms, worse predators. I'll be fine. Here you must learn, observe, and adapt. Every step you take will matter. Every sound, every shadow could be a predator or a trap." But the planet seemed alive in a way he hadn't experienced before. The shadows shifted slightly, the rocks seemed to shimmer, and even the wind felt deliberate, as if it were observing him. He exhaled, gripping his rifle. "I've got this," he muttered, more to himself than to Lyra. She watched him silently, letting him speak his confidence, letting him feel the weight of the world around him. Then she finally spoke. "Your first test begins immediately. You will not hunt anything at first. You must survive. You must move without drawing attention. You must learn to read the environment, not fight it." The two of them moved cautiously across the jagged terrain. Lyra's steps were deliberate, light, almost imperceptible. She pointed out subtle signs of life. A tree that seemed to bend toward the wind, a series of tracks leading into a thicket, even the way the shadows shifted as the wind swept across the land. "Everything here communicates," she said. "Not in words, not in sounds you understand, but in actions, in patterns, in reactions. Watch, listen, learn." "Too fast," Lyra said calmly, helping him up. "Here, speed is a liability. You must anticipate, not react. Patience is your ally." Hours passed as they navigated the treacherous terrain. Small creatures watched them from a distance, some hiding in the molten rivers, others clinging to jagged rocks. Jax caught glimpses of predators that were unlike anything he had seen before, sleek, muscular beings with camouflage that made them nearly invisible, moving with a deliberate intelligence. Each encounter reminded him that here, every life form was a potential threat, and that arrogance could be fatal. During a brief rest, Jax took stock of their surroundings. The planet was alive in a way that no sensor or scanner could measure. The wind carried sounds that shifted with the land, the sky changed color with each passing hour, and the air itself seemed to pulse. He realized that every movement, every noise, every action could be detected. "You see them?" Lyra asked, breaking his thoughts. "See what?" Jax replied, scanning the rocks ahead. "The hunters," she said simply. "Not all predators here attack immediately. Some observe, some plan. The most dangerous are the ones that learn from you." He had faced cunning creatures before, but the idea that predators here could adapt and strategize at his level was something entirely new. "Then let's find one," he said, his voice a mix of curiosity and bravado. Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Not yet. Observation first. Understanding first. Attack only when the environment and the prey align perfectly. You will fail otherwise." These were not mindless beasts. These were hunters, strategists, and survivors. As night fell, the planet transformed. The orange skies darkened to deep crimson and glowing spores drifted through the air like tiny lanterns. The predators became more active, their hunting instincts heightened under the cover of darkness. Jax felt a thrill of fear and excitement. This was what he had come for. Lyra crouched beside him. "Tonight, you will see the first real test. You must move through the predator territory without being noticed. If they detect you too soon, they will drive you into the open and attack. Your weapons will only help if your mind is ready." This hunt was not about bravery alone. It was about intelligence, patience, and respect for the environment. They moved slowly, each step deliberate, following paths that Lyra indicated. Every shadow, every rustle of leaves, every distant sound was a potential signal. Jax's senses heightened. He realized that survival here required seeing beyond the obvious, anticipating movements before they happened, and controlling fear instead of being controlled by it. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the jagged rocks. Jax froze, his heart pounding. In the distance, he saw movement, sleek, fast, deliberate. A creature taller than any human with glowing eyes and limbs that moved like shadows was observing them. It made no sound, but its presence was undeniable. Lyra whispered, "Do not move. Let it watch, learn." Minutes passed. The creature moved silently, circling them, testing their reactions. Jax noted its behavior, its calculated movements, its intelligence. He realized that it was studying them as much as they were studying it. This was no ordinary predator. This was a being capable of strategy, capable of adapting, capable of turning the hunter into the hunted. Finally, Lyra nudged him gently. "Now step back slowly, retreat carefully, do not run." The arrogance he carried, the confidence that had always served him, now felt fragile. He understood, at least partially, what Lyra had meant. On this planet, survival was not guaranteed by strength alone. As they set up a temporary camp, Jax sat staring into the faintly glowing horizon. The night air was thick and alive, every sound amplified. He thought of his previous hunts, of creatures he had dominated and storms he had endured, and he realized that none of that had prepared him for this world. Lyra approached, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder. "You have learned the first lesson," she said. "Strength is nothing without awareness. Weapons are nothing without strategy. Confidence is nothing without humility. Tomorrow, the challenge will increase. The hunters you see now are only the beginning." As he lay down under the strange alien sky, listening to the sounds of the planet, the rustling, the distant calls, the whisper of wind across jagged rocks, he felt a strange sense of anticipation. He was no longer the hunter who believed he could dominate anything. He was a student now, learning the rules of a world that did not bend to human arrogance. And in that quiet, he realized that Lyra's question, asked simply and calmly, had already begun to change him. "Did any of them hunt you back?" It was not just a question about creatures. It was a challenge, a lesson, and perhaps a warning. Tomorrow, he would face more than predators. He would face himself. And the galaxy would watch to see if the human hunter could truly survive when the rules were not his own. The first light of the planet's sun cast a dim orange glow over the jagged landscape. Jax rose from his makeshift shelter, feeling the stiffness of muscles he hadn't used this way in months. Every movement was deliberate, every step careful. The night had been alive with sounds, shifts in the wind, distant calls, the subtle vibrations through the ground, and he realized that the planet had been watching him as closely as he had been watching it. Lyra was already awake, crouched near the edge of a cliff that overlooked a vast valley of twisting rock and sparse vegetation. Her eyes scanned the horizon, alert but calm. "Today, the hunt begins in earnest," she said without turning. "You will move through territory controlled by predators that are intelligent and adaptive. You will learn quickly that speed and weapons alone will not keep you alive." He had survived everything the galaxy had thrown at him, and yet this world already felt different. It demanded not just strength, but thought. He wanted to prove to himself, and perhaps to Lyra, that he could rise to the challenge. They moved down the cliff carefully, each step deliberate, following paths Lyra indicated. The ground was jagged and uneven, littered with sharp stones and small fissures that threatened to trip the unwary. Every sound seemed amplified, the crack of a stone underfoot, the low hiss of the wind, even the faint murmur of distant creatures. "Do not make sudden movements," Lyra whispered. "They notice, they learn." His rifle was ready, but he kept it lowered, understanding that showing aggression too soon could draw attention. He scanned the landscape carefully, noting the subtle signs of life. A bent branch, a shadow that shifted oddly, a small cluster of glowing spores that pulsed with rhythm. These were the signals of predators, of creatures that were intelligent enough to test him, to probe him, to learn from his movements. Hours passed, and the terrain grew more dangerous. They reached a narrow gorge where molten rivers cut through blackened rock. Steam rose from the water, carrying a pungent, metallic scent. Jax's senses heightened. Every instinct screamed at him that something was nearby, waiting, observing. "There," Lyra said softly, pointing toward a jagged rock formation. "Do you see the tracks?" Not just movement, but planning. The creature had been deliberate, thoughtful, testing the area before committing to action. "So they are learning," Jax muttered, "adjusting their hunt based on observation. If you rely only on strength, you will fail." Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the gorge, vibrating through the air and ground. Jax froze, scanning the rocks. From a shadowed crevice, a predator emerged. It was unlike anything he had faced before, sleek and muscular, with reflective black scales that seemed to absorb the light. Its eyes glowed faintly amber, intelligent and calculating. The creature studied them, tilting its head, analyzing their movements. Jax felt a thrill of fear, but he remembered Lyra's instruction, patience, observation, adaptation. He crouched lower, keeping his rifle steady but not raised. Lyra moved silently beside him, her presence calm and reassuring. The creature circled them, testing, probing. It did not attack immediately, but Jax could feel its awareness, its intelligence. This was no simple predator. It was a hunter, a strategist, and it was measuring him. Minutes passed, each one feeling like an eternity. Jax noted every movement, every twitch, every subtle signal. The creature's pattern became clear. It was testing them, learning from their responses, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Now," Lyra whispered. "Move slowly to the rocks over there. Keep low. Do not make sudden movements." He realized something vital. The predator was teaching him, testing him, preparing him for what the planet truly demanded. They reached a cluster of boulders that provided partial cover. Jax crouched behind one, his heart pounding. He could see the predator clearly now, its muscles rippling under the scales, its eyes scanning constantly. Every step it took was deliberate, precise, intelligent. He had faced dangerous creatures before, but this was different. This was not just about survival, it was about outthinking a being that could think. Lyra knelt beside him. "You are doing well, but do not let pride blind you. The hunt is only beginning. You must remain aware at all times." He realized that he had never truly understood hunting until now. It was not about domination. It was about harmony with the environment, understanding the rules and anticipating the unexpected. The predator made a sudden move, darting toward a ridge. Jax tensed, ready to fire, but Lyra shook her head. "Wait, let it come to you. Do not react too soon." They continued moving through the gorge, encountering more predators, each one testing their reactions. Some were small and fast, darting from shadows and disappearing. Others were larger, moving with deliberate caution, observing patterns and adjusting their paths based on their observations. Jax began to notice something extraordinary. He was learning to anticipate not just the predators, but the environment itself. He noted how the wind carried sound, how shadows shifted with the sun, how even the plants reacted to movement. Every step, every observation was a lesson in survival. By midday, they reached a plateau overlooking a vast valley. Lyra gestured for Jax to stop. "Rest here. Observe." It is about understanding, about strategy, about survival. The creatures you see below will test you in ways you cannot predict. Your weapons will only serve if your mind is ready. Humility is the key. Arrogance will kill you here faster than any predator. The predators were more active now, some moving in packs, others stalking silently. Jax's heart raced with every shadow, every movement. He felt alive in a way he had never experienced before, alert, aware, and challenged. Suddenly, a massive creature leapt from the trees ahead. Jax froze, adrenaline surging. It was enormous, with 4 powerful limbs and a tail that lashed the ground. Its eyes glowed with intelligence, and it moved not randomly, but with purpose. Lyra whispered sharply, "Stay low, do not fire, observe its behavior, learn its pattern." Observation first, patience first, adaptation first. After tense minutes, the creature turned and disappeared into the shadows. Jax exhaled, feeling a mixture of relief and exhilaration. He had survived another test, but he knew this was only the beginning. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "You are learning, that is what matters. Tomorrow, the challenges will be greater. The predator's more cunning, but remember this, humans can adapt. Humans can learn, and when you do, you will survive even here on the edge of the galaxy." He realized that he was not just hunting, he was being tested, shaped, and strengthened. As night fell again, he settled into a small cave with Lyra. The planet hummed with life, and Jax listened, aware that every sound, every vibration was a lesson. He closed his eyes, knowing that tomorrow would be even harder. The hunt was just beginning, and the predators of this planet would push him to his limits. But for the first time, Jax felt ready, not just to survive, but to learn, to adapt, and to rise to the challenge of a world that did not bend to human arrogance. The night was thick and heavy, and the alien sky glowed with an eerie orange light that never seemed to fade completely. Jax lay in the shallow cave with Lyra, listening to the sounds of the planet. The distant growls, the rustling of unseen creatures, the low hum of wind moving through jagged rocks. Every sound was a potential threat, every movement a clue. For the first time in his life, Jax felt truly aware of the world around him, not as a hunter conquering prey, but as a student trying to survive. Lyra stirred beside him, her amber eyes reflecting the dim light. "Tonight, the hunt changes," she said softly. "The predators you have seen are the scouts. They test and observe. Tomorrow you will face those who hunt with full intelligence. They will challenge everything you think you know about survival." He had survived encounters with predators before, but she spoke as if the next step was something entirely different, something that would push him to his absolute limits. "We move at first light," Lyra continued. "You must be ready. This world will not forgive mistakes, and the predators you face tomorrow will not be predictable." Sleep did not come easily, and even when it did, it was filled with dreams of shadows, glowing eyes, and creatures that moved with intelligence. Every instinct told him to prepare, to anticipate, to be ready. When dawn came, it was a dull, reddish haze that hung over the jagged terrain. Jax rose, stretching his stiff muscles, and checked his weapons and supplies. Lyra was already moving, scanning the horizon with her usual calm precision. "Today you will learn the limits of your strength," she said. "Do not rely on your weapons alone. Do not rely on brute force. You must think, observe, and adapt faster than ever before." He had survived every death world he had ever faced, but now he realized that those hunts were only preparation for what awaited him here. They descended into a valley where the terrain was treacherous, filled with sharp rocks, narrow ledges, and glowing fissures of molten lava. The air was thick and heavy, and every step echoed in ways that made it difficult to determine where sounds were coming from. "Move carefully," Lyra whispered. "Do not draw attention. The predators you face today are fast, intelligent, and coordinated. They will test your reflexes, your observation, and your patience." He scanned every shadow, every movement, every sound. The predators were already aware of them. He could feel it in the air, in the subtle vibrations through the ground. They were being watched, studied, and tested. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught his eye, a creature, sleek and muscular, darting between rocks. Its eyes glowed faintly amber, intelligent and calculating. Jax froze, holding his breath. Lyra's hand on his shoulder reminded him to remain calm. "Observe," she whispered. "Do not attack, learn its behavior." Minutes passed, the creature watching him as much as he watched it. Jax realized that every instinct he had honed over years of hunting was being tested in new ways. Speed, strength, and weapons were only part of the equation. Observation, patience, and adaptability were just as important. Lyra led him deeper into the valley, where more predators emerged. Some were small and fast, darting between rocks and disappearing. Others were larger, moving with deliberate caution, analyzing his every move. Jax felt a thrill of fear and excitement. This was the ultimate test of his skills and intelligence. As they moved, a massive creature suddenly leapt from the shadows. It was taller than any human, with glowing eyes and sharp, curved claws. Its body moved with a fluid intelligence that made Jax's blood run cold. "Stay low," Lyra commanded. "Do not fire, observe, learn." He realized that this predator was not just hunting for food. It was studying him, planning its moves, adapting to his behavior. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. Jax focused on every detail, the way the creature shifted its weight, the subtle cues in its movements, the patterns of the shadows. He began to anticipate its actions, moving subtly and deliberately to stay out of sight. After tense minutes, the creature paused, then disappeared into the shadows. Jax exhaled quietly, feeling a mixture of relief and exhilaration. He had survived the encounter, but he knew this was only the beginning. The predators here were intelligent, adaptive, and relentless. Lyra nodded at him, a faint smile on her face. "You are learning. Observation and patience are just as important as strength. The hunt is not over. The predators will continue to test you, and the challenges will grow." Jax realized that they were not just individuals. They were part of a network, communicating through subtle signals, adapting to every move he made. Hours passed. Jax's muscles ached, and his mind was exhausted, but he felt a growing sense of awareness. He was beginning to understand the patterns of the predators, the signals of the environment, and the subtle rules of this world. Then, without warning, a coordinated attack began. Two large predators emerged from the shadows, flanking him from opposite sides. Their movements were synchronized, intelligent, and precise. Jax froze, realizing that this was the true test Lyra had warned him about. "Now," Lyra whispered, "use what you have learned, adapt, survive." He analyzed the predators, noting their patterns and predicting their next moves. Instead of attacking immediately, he moved slowly, deliberately, setting a trap using the terrain. He led one predator toward a narrow ledge where its momentum caused it to stumble slightly. Then he drew the second predator into the path, using their coordination against them. The plan worked, but barely. The predators recovered quickly, circling him again. Jax realized that he could not rely on simple tactics. He had to think several steps ahead, anticipate their reactions, and adapt constantly. Hours passed in a tense dance of movement, observation, and strategy. Jax used every lesson Lyra had taught him: patience, observation, understanding the environment, and adapting to the predator's intelligence. By the time night fell, he was exhausted but alive. He had survived the coordinated attack, and more importantly, he had learned to think differently, to move differently, and to anticipate threats in ways he never had before. Lyra led him to a temporary shelter where they rested under the alien sky. Jax's body ached, but his mind was alert, buzzing with new understanding. He realized that the predators were not just creatures to be hunted. They were teachers, testing his limits and pushing him to grow stronger. "You have done well," Lyra said softly. "You have survived the true test of the hunt. But remember this, the planet is alive, and the predators are only one part of it. You must respect the world, learn its rules, and adapt constantly. Arrogance will kill you faster than any predator." Every step he took, every decision he made would be tested. As they settled for the night, Jax reflected on what he had learned. Strength, speed, and weapons were important, but they were not enough. Observation, patience, adaptability, and respect were just as crucial. He had begun to understand Lyra's question. Did any of them hunt you back? This world hunted in ways he had never imagined, and he was finally learning to survive on its terms. Tomorrow, the hunt would continue. The predators would be smarter, faster, and more dangerous. Jax knew that he would have to push himself further than ever before, relying on his mind as much as his body. But for the first time, he felt truly ready, not just to survive, but to adapt, to grow, and to meet the challenges of a world that did not bend to human arrogance. The planet's first light was a dull, molten red that seeped across the jagged horizon. Jax rose slowly, every muscle stiff from the trials of the past 2 days. His body ached, but his mind was sharper than it had ever been. Every step, every sound, every shadow was now part of a complex map in his mind. He had survived tests no human had faced before, but Lyra's final lesson awaited, the ultimate challenge of this world. Lyra approached silently, as calm and precise as always. Her amber eyes scanned the jagged terrain ahead. "Today you will face the apex predators of this planet," she said. "They are not only strong and intelligent, they are adaptive beyond what you have seen so far. Every move you make will be tested. Every instinct you have will be challenged. And if you fail, survival will not be an option." Every encounter so far had taught him that strength and firepower alone were insufficient. Today, he would have to use every skill he had learned: observation, patience, strategy, and respect for the environment. They began their descent into a deep canyon where the planet's apex predators were said to roam. The air was thick, vibrating with a constant low hum, as though the land itself was alive and aware. Shadows shifted and lengthened with the rising sun, and Jax felt the familiar thrill of anticipation mixed with fear. "Stay alert," Lyra whispered. "They hunt in pairs, in groups, and sometimes alone, but all are intelligent. They learn from you, adapt to you, and anticipate your actions." You must remain 2 steps ahead at all times. Jax noticed the subtle movements of smaller creatures, scouts perhaps reporting the presence of intruders to the apex predators. Every detail mattered. Suddenly, a massive shadow passed across the canyon floor. Jax froze, heart pounding, as 2 enormous predators emerged from the darkness. They moved with terrifying grace, each step calculated, each movement intelligent. Their amber eyes glowed faintly and their muscles rippled with power. "They are testing you," Lyra whispered. "Do not attack immediately. Observe, learn, adapt." The creatures were not merely attacking. They were strategizing, anticipating, and probing his weaknesses. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Jax stayed calm, breathing slowly, observing patterns, analyzing movements, predicting reactions. He remembered everything Lyra had taught him: patience, observation, adaptation. Weapons alone would not guarantee survival. Intelligence, strategy, and respect for the environment were just as important. The predators moved closer, circling him in a synchronized dance that tested his every instinct. Jax realized that brute force would fail here. Any rash action could provoke an attack that would leave him dead within seconds. He needed to use his mind to think faster than they did and to anticipate moves he could not yet see. Lyra pointed to a narrow ledge above the canyon floor. "Use the terrain. Force them to adapt to you. You are not just surviving, you are learning to dominate the situation through intelligence." He chose every step carefully, balancing on sharp rocks, listening to vibrations in the ground, and adjusting his movements to remain hidden from the predators below. The creatures followed, their amber eyes tracking him, their bodies rippling with anticipation. Suddenly, one predator lunged toward him, faster than he had anticipated. Jax rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding its claws, and used the momentum to spring onto a small rock ledge above. The predator hesitated, recalculating before following. Jax realized the key. He had to control the terrain, forcing the predators into situations where he could anticipate their actions. Hours passed in a tense, strategic dance. Jax used every skill he had learned over the past days: observation of patterns, understanding the environment, anticipating predator behavior, and using terrain to his advantage. The predators were relentless, adaptive, and intelligent, but Jax was learning faster than they could adapt. By mid-afternoon, he had managed to separate the 2 predators, using the canyon's twists and fissures to his advantage. He observed them from above, noting their movements, their coordination, and their intelligence. He realized something profound. This was not just a hunt. This was a test of human ingenuity, patience, and adaptation. Survival here was a measure of intellect as much as strength. Lyra approached quietly. "You are ready," she said. "But the true apex predator remains. You have faced scouts and strategists, but the final challenge is the one who rules this world. It will test everything you have learned. Are you prepared?" He had learned humility, patience, and strategy. Now he was ready to face the ultimate test. They moved deeper into the canyon, toward a vast clearing surrounded by jagged cliffs. The air was thick with tension, and every vibration through the ground felt amplified. Jax could sense the presence of the apex predator even before he saw it. A massive shadow, larger than anything he had faced before, moving with deliberate intelligence. The creature emerged slowly from the shadows. It was immense, with glowing eyes and a body covered in scales that shimmered with dark colors. Its movements were fluid and precise, and it radiated awareness. It was not hunting blindly, it was calculating, observing, testing Jax's every move. Jax crouched behind a large rock, heart pounding. Lyra whispered, "Observe first, then adapt. Remember everything you have learned." Jax held his breath, analyzing its movements, noting subtle signals in its behavior, anticipating its next strike. Suddenly, the creature lunged. Jax rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding its claws, and scrambled to a higher ledge. The predator followed, moving with terrifying speed and intelligence. Every move he made, it mirrored and adapted to. He realized that this hunt was not about fighting, it was about outthinking. Jax remembered Lyra's lessons: use terrain, anticipate patterns, stay calm, respect the predator's intelligence. He led the creature through a series of twists and narrow ledges, forcing it to miscalculate its jumps and movements. Each time he stayed 1 step ahead, predicting its behavior before it acted. Hours passed in this deadly dance. Jax's muscles burned, his mind raced, but he felt alive in a way he had never known. This was not just survival, it was human ingenuity in action. He was adapting faster than the predator could, using strategy, observation, and intelligence to survive. Finally, he saw an opening, a narrow canyon that led to a series of jagged cliffs. If he could force the predator into the path, it would be temporarily trapped by the terrain. Jax moved carefully, luring the apex predator along, every step precise. The creature followed, its intelligence evident, but Jax's understanding of the environment gave him the advantage. At the last moment, the predator miscalculated a jump and landed awkwardly on a ledge above, momentarily disoriented. Jax seized the opportunity, using a series of well-placed rocks and the terrain to block its path temporarily. The predator snarled, eyes glowing, but it could not advance without risking injury. Jax exhaled, adrenaline surging. He had survived the apex predator. Not through brute strength, not through weapons alone, but through intelligence, observation, patience, and adaptation. He had learned the lessons of the planet, and in doing so, he had proven the resilience and ingenuity of humanity. Lyra approached, her amber eyes reflecting approval. "You have done well," she said. "You have survived the true test. You have adapted, observed, and respected this world. You have proven that humans are not only capable of survival, but capable of growth and intelligence beyond what they often believe." He realized that the true value of this hunt was not in trophies or dominance, but in mastery of self and environment. The apex predator regained its composure and disappeared into the shadows, leaving Jax alive and wiser. He understood that it had not been an enemy to be killed, but a teacher to be studied and respected. As they prepared to leave the canyon, Lyra spoke quietly. "The galaxy is full of challenges, but humanity has the ability to adapt, to learn, and to rise above even the most dangerous worlds. That is your strength, Jax. Not weapons, not arrogance, but intelligence, observation, and respect for life." Now he was a survivor who understood that true strength came from adaptation, respect, and understanding. He had faced Deathworld's predators and himself, and he had emerged wiser, stronger, and fully human. As the transport lifted off, leaving the jagged planet behind, Jax looked out at the stars. The galaxy stretched before him, vast and dangerous, but full of possibilities. He knew that humanity could thrive, not just survive, in even the harshest environments. They could learn, adapt, and grow stronger than anyone or anything had anticipated. Lyra sat beside him, her expression calm but approving. "Remember this," she said. "The galaxy is alive, it challenges, it tests, and it hunts. But humans can rise to the challenge. That is why you survive. That is why you thrive. That is why you are remarkable." As the stars stretched into lines of light around the transport, Jax whispered to himself a quiet promise. "I will remember, I will learn, I will survive." And he knew deep in his heart that humanity was capable of more than anyone had yet imagined. For the first time, he felt it truly. The universe was vast, dangerous, and alive. And humanity, if wise and adaptable, could meet every challenge, outthink every threat, and thrive against all odds.